Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new and you'd like to hear about opinions, reviews, and analyses on films, books, and TV shows, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more content from me. So today's video is about a relationship that has somewhat similar vibes as Kat and Patrick's relationship in 10 Things I Hate About You. Red, White, and Royal Blue has been on my TBR for over a year, and I finally got around to sitting down and finishing it. So one thing I've known even before reading this book was how frequently people on Instagram have described it as enemies to lovers and Slowburn. So I'm here to determine whether the enemies to lovers trope, as well as the Slowburn romance, are accurate when describing Alex and Henry's relationship. This video isn't spoiler free, by the way, so if you haven't finished reading the book, maybe hold off on watching this video until after you've read it. Before I give my thoughts on the accuracy of the tropes in this book, I figured I should probably define the tropes first. So let's start off first with enemies to lovers. Enemies to lovers is a little tricky to define because everyone has a different definition or idea of what that trope entails. So according to BTL editorial, enemies to lovers is when two people start off as enemies and eventually end up in a romantic relationship with each other. They also have to overcome their differences and misconceptions of each other before falling in love. I think that because of this definition, a lot of enemies to lovers in some stories come off as incredibly toxic or unhealthy. See, a lot of enemies to lovers relationships have the enemies be downright nasty and disrespectful of one another. An example would be if a jock was bullying a nerd and they somehow fall in love. That's not a healthy enemies to lovers because the animosity is one-sided and there's a serious lack of respect. For me, at least, enemies to lovers definitely have bickering, which is essential to the trope, and them not getting along. But on some level, there is some respect for each other, even if it's subconsciously. So respect is the main thing, and not being abusive, manipulative, or being a bully. As for the Slowburn romance, it's defined on Bustle as a romance novel that focuses on a character-driven love story, where that relationship takes some time to develop. There has to be a significant amount of development both for the individuals and for the pair throughout the novel, with romantic tension that builds and builds. In other words, it's about the yearning. So too slow of a burn would make it hard for anyone to want to keep reading or even root for these two people to get together. Whereas the opposite of a slow burn would be a quick burn or a fast burn. I'm not sure, I'm just making up words. But that's usually where they're dating by like chapter 2 and then married by chapter 4. Anyway, these two tropes actually go hand in hand. To develop an enemies to lovers trope successfully, they have to be slow burn. It's not realistic to be hating someone this entire time and then 2 chapters in they're already madly in love. You need to go through all the little steps to get there. And that's the beauty of these two tropes, like the build-up of getting to that romance. Now that I've defined both tropes, are Alex and Henry accurately enemies to lovers, and are they slow burn? Let's tackle the first question. I think that the more accurate trope for them is, and this is kind of long, so bear with me, one-sided rivalry, to tentative friends, to friends, to friends with benefits, to lovers. Why rivals over enemies? Well, I'm a nerd who actually Googled these definitions, so like I should know what I'm talking about, but rival is defined as a person or a thing competing with another for the same objective or for superiority in the same field of activity. Alex mentions being compared to Henry a lot in the beginning of the book, whereas enemy is defined as actively opposed to someone or something. The dictionary synonym of enemy is rival, but enemy to me implies trying to kill each other, whereas rivals is just like bickering and trying to outdo each other, which is a lot more accurate with Alex and Henry. So Alex tries to outdo Henry a lot, and they do bicker quite a bit at the beginning. Both Alex and Henry are also seemingly different with their personalities, but they come together and realize that they have more in common than originally thought. Also, I will say that instead of just enemies to lovers, that one-sided rivalry might be the more accurate trope to describe the relationship, especially because on Alex's end, the rivalry is one-sided. Henry is not trying to, at least I think, outdo him the way Alex thought Henry was trying to outdo him like this entire time, like before the novel started. Which brings me to the second question. Are they slow burn? They're kind of slow burn, but not quite. They kiss by chapter 4 or 5, and the chapters are about 20 pages each, and the book only has 15 chapters. But the first kiss didn't mean that they're together already, hence the friends with benefits that I tacked on before the lovers part. It's slow burn for the actual relationship, but not slow burn with giving into the sexual tension. What I liked about the slow burn romance between them is seeing the progression of their relationship, developing from rivals to friends to lovers. It's a lot more realistic, and I know that with most fiction novels, there's a suspension of disbelief, but in this case, you want to see a somewhat realistic development of a relationship when reading a romance novel. They're not just zooming from rivals to lovers immediately. Alex and Henry are also coming to terms with their own feelings. Plus, the attraction was always there too, which doesn't make the relationship come out of nowhere. And their official relationship is not the climax of the story, nor completely at the end. They were outed just before the election, which is climactic, but they were together beforehand, and we were able to see some of their struggles with their relationship before they were ultimately given a happily ever after by the end. So to sum up, Alex and Henry are a form of enemies to lovers, but it's more accurate to define the relationship as a one-sided rivalry to tentative friends, to friends with benefits, to lovers. It's a mouthful, but if we were to shorten it, it would just be rivals to friends to lovers. And while their physical relationship moved a lot quicker than their emotional relationship did, they are still somewhat of a slow burn. We get to see the progression of their relationship, and it does take time to get to where they are by the end. I like that the novel didn't end just as they got together, but also managed to show us their struggles when they were outed, and how they and their families dealt with it, especially with the election. That being said, Ellen Claremont for President 2024. She is honestly the best fictional mom I've read about because of how supportive she is. And Catherine Mountchristen-Windsor too. We love moms who support their sons in love. And that's a wrap on Red, White, and Royal Blue. I am swamped for the rest of March because of assignments, so I probably won't be able to post any new videos till early April. RIP. I wanted my next video to be on the Batman, but I have no idea if I'll have the time to watch it in theaters. So my next video is going to be up by early April, and it will be on the first episode of Moon Knight, since it's set to stream on March 30th. Thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe.